So the race in Abu Dhabi was absolutely nuts. Way to finish the season off on a controversy, but whether or not you agree with the way the race was handled, Max Verstappen is now officially the 2021 World Champion. Even though Mercedes tried to appeal that decision, the FIA and the stewards denied it. So since one of the greatest seasons of F1 has now drawn to an end, I thought it would be a great time to make a video about the performance of the top 10 drivers this season. So since this is probably going to be a bit of a longer video than I usually make, let's not waste any more time and cut right to the chase. So the ranking order is very simple. It goes from 1 to 10, 1 being the best driver of the season, going down to 10, which obviously would be the 10th best driver. And of course I rank the drivers relative to their car performance, because obviously we wouldn't be expecting to see someone like Mick Schumacher or Nikita Mazepin anywhere near the top 10 in any race in that Haas. So with that out of the way, the number 1 driver of this season to me was none other than Max Verstappen. I think the majority of us can agree that Max has just been a different breed of driver this season without question. He started the season off strong and kept that consistent throughout the whole year. If it weren't for his unlucky puncture in Baku and his collision with Lewis Hamilton in Silverstone, I think he would have already had the championship sealed for Saudi Arabia. So in my opinion, there really isn't too much to say about Max. His dominance in some of the races this year was, to put it simply, unusual considering the Hamilton and Mercedes dominance these past 7 years. So beating Hamilton in a head-to-head championship battle in what I assume was fairly equal machinery is impressive. Also, his ability to just recover and keep going, say after the likes of Baku, Silverstone and Hungary, in a championship as hyped as this one was super admirable. Whether or not you agree with Abu Dhabi is irrelevant, because what we've seen from Max this season was something else, so I think he's well deserving of the top spot for this season. In second, we obviously have Lewis Hamilton, who drove incredibly this season, like he usually does. However, from the start of the season, it seemed like Max was somehow edging out Lewis in terms of performance. For example, in the first race of the season, Bahrain, we saw Max stick dangerously close to Hamilton and eventually pull a controversial overtake out of track limits. Yes, the overtake was illegal, however, you can't deny the fact that Max was putting pressure onto Lewis that he quite frankly hasn't felt in a while. And he continued to do so for the whole season, except the last few races where Hamilton absolutely dominated. See, this is why I think it was very close to call between the two, because Hamilton's form was just out of this world from Brazil forward. Obviously he took a new engine for Brazil, but then switched back to the old one for Qatar and still dominated the race. Jeddah was a chaotic race, but Lewis still managed to win that one even with the front wing damage, which I thought would have ruined his race. But he was setting the fastest laps with that busted front wing, which is just mad impressive. And then finally Abu Dhabi, a sour one for Hamilton, dominated the whole race but lost out in the final lap because of the restart with the safety car. Max pit for softs, which is the root of this whole controversy, and Hamilton was of course on those ancient hard tyres. So we all knew in that moment that if the race starts again and Max doesn't have traffic in front of him, he will win the championship, and that's what happened. If I had to put it plainly, I think Max was the better driver this season overall. Was it close? Yeah, pretty close, but again, overall, Max seemed more well-rounded throughout the season. Less mistakes and insane consistency. Not that Lewis wasn't consistent, but he did make a good few more mistakes than Verstappen this season, particularly around the middle of the season, which cost him the championship, and that's why I've put him in second. In third place, we have Sergio Perez, but before that, I want to just say that choosing the next 4 drivers, including Perez, was very close. In fact, I was constantly switching them around, trying to put them in the best order, and I eventually settled for this one. But just note, in my opinion, these next 4 drivers, including Checo, have essentially performed equally great this season. But of course, this is a top 10, so we had to put each driver somewhere. But yeah, in fourth, we have Sergio Perez. 5 podiums, one of which was a win, 190 points, and finished 4th in the championship, all in his first season at Red Bull. And if it weren't for the bad luck he's had this season in a couple of races, I'm not sure if he would have beaten Valtteri Bottas for 3rd in the championship, but he would have been a lot closer. And just saying that really shows how well Checo has done this season. Also, let's not forget the impact he's had on the championship. He's helped his teammate Max Verstappen on multiple occasions this year. 2 of the more prominent and impressive occasions were when he fended off Hamilton in Turkey and in Abu Dhabi. Really, some of the best racing this season has come from Checo, and because of that, I reckon he truly deserves the 3rd place spot here. Next up in 4th place is Lando Norris, which probably won't come as a surprise to a lot of you since, well, he's performed insanely well this season. Up until Italy. He's had a great first half and a bit of the season with 4 podiums and almost grabbed his first win in Sochi. But the opportunity was sadly crushed in the final few laps when Norris decided to stay out on the dry tyres when the intermediate tyres were the correct choice. Since then, however, he's had a bit of a slump in races and fell off the impressive form he had. But I still think that the first half of the season and him finishing 6th place in the championship, just 4.5 points behind his old teammate and good friend Carlos Sainz, is enough to put him in the 4th place. 5th place goes to none other than the gas man, Pierre Gasly. Can we all just agree that Pierre easily deserves a better car? I get that he's had his shot in the Red Bull and yeah, he blew it, but man, if there's anything the 2021 season has taught us, or me at least, is that Gasly is a top driver. Easily one of the best on the grid, and I mean that. He finished the season in 9th place with 110 points, just 5 points shy of the 8th place spot, which was taken by the Honey Badger, Daniel Ricciardo. 1 podium, 1 fastest lap, but 4 DNFs. He could have had that 8th place in the championship in the bag had he not retired from 4 races this season. But yeah, you can probably tell I've become a big Gasly fan and I think that he well deserves his spot in the top 5. In 6th place, man, this one was hard, we have Carlos Sainz. The reason I said this one was hard to decide was because in 7th place we have Charles Leclerc, and 6th place was between the two teammates, but since Carlos outscored Charles and just adapted to the Ferrari and did so well in it this season, I just had to give him 6th. I mean, it was truly impressive. First year at Ferrari, he finished every race of the season, he now holds the longest point scoring streak in Formula 1, and he managed 4 podiums along the way. Tell me that's not impressive. So not way too much to say other than yeah, great season from Carlos and 6th best driver of the year in my opinion. I've already said who's 7th, yes, Charles Leclerc. And yeah, if there's been an unlucky driver this season, it's been this man right here. Not that there's been too many occasions this year that he was unlucky in, it's just that they meant so much. Monaco is a prime example. Charles had pole in the bag, but on his in-lap he crashed into the barriers on the exit of the swimming pool chicane. That caused a damaged gearbox, which Ferrari said wasn't damaged until it came time to race. So Charles had to miss out on the Monaco GP altogether. So instead of potentially converting pole to a win, that crash caused Leclerc to miss out on any points altogether. But looking at the rest of his season, he did manage a podium in Britain, which could have potentially been a win, and he's also had a pretty consistent year at that. So all in all, 7th place goes to Charles Leclerc, and had he not retired the car twice this season, he could have beaten his teammate and Lando Norris in the championship, and even potentially Perez. But sadly that's not the case, so yeah, I think 7th place is fair enough for Leclerc in 2021. Now, the 8th place goes surprisingly to a rookie actually. His name is Fernando Alonso, but jokes aside, this season has been pretty damn good for Alonso. The Alpine he drove was definitely not one of the faster cars on track, but he still managed to be consistent and very competitive at times with the machinery at hand. One of the races that stuck out the most was, of course, Qatar, where he put the Alpine on the podium purely on merit. No crashing, no accidents that put him in a fortunate position, just a great qualifying session, good strategy, and great race pace. All in all, seeing as Fernando came back out of a 2-year retirement and still managed what he did this season even after that bicycle accident just before the season started is just insane. Now, I don't think we've seen the best of Alonso this year, so if the car improves, I'm sure we'll be seeing some pretty awesome scenes involving Fernando next year. In 9th place we have Esteban Ocon. Now, a lot of people may be expecting someone like George Russell in this position, but no. I think Ocon has truly had a better season. Now, of course, it's been a mixed year for Esteban. He's had highs and lows, the lows being some of his pretty bad quality results, but he's also had his highs, which I think ultimately outweigh the lows. Like, I don't know, the time he won a race in Hungary? That was truly spectacular, and a big reason for that win was his teammate Fernando Alonso's insane defense on Lewis Hamilton. That race was definitely a highlight. Man, Hungary was crazy. But yeah, Ocon drove a faultless race with Sebastian Vettel behind him and pressuring him, and he won the race. He also drove extremely well in Saudi Arabia, but he lost out on the podium finish when he lost the drag race to the finish line against Valtteri Bottas in the Merc. I'm beginning to like Esteban more and more, and I think he's improved a ton as a driver. And paired with Alonso, if that Alpine improves for 2022, I think they could be a pretty killer team for the future. And finally, in 10th place is George Russell, the Williams driver who always seems to just overperform with the car he's been given. He's had an impressive season, 16 points, finishing 15th in the championship standings. I really haven't got too much to say for George. He scored points on 3 occasions, which is extremely good in that Williams. He's had his usual great qualifying pace, which allowed him to get a P2 at Spa, which wasn't exactly a race, but yeah, a podium is a podium at the end of the day. And yeah, just a good year all things considered for George. You just can't always see that, since quite often he'll be towards the end of the grid due to the car he drives. But that should all be over next season, since he will be driving a Mercedes then, which definitely shouldn't be a backmarket car. Now, it does all come down to how well Mercedes do with the new regulations, but more likely than not, they'll be up there towards the front of the pack in terms of performance. So for George, he's had a successful season. Moments of mistakes and bad luck were definitely present, but all in all, he's definitely done more than enough in the Williams car this season to solidify a place in my top 10 drivers this season. But yeah, that was it. I hope you enjoyed, and maybe you might agree. Maybe you don't, but to me that doesn't matter, since this was my top 10 after all. But let me know your opinions down in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, since a lot of work goes into these videos. If you do, that's very much appreciated. But on that note, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great night, and I hope to see you next time.